I'm Juan Salgado. I'm the Chancellor of the City Colleges of Chicago, and I want to welcome you all. You've had a great morning so far. I want to welcome you all to this session on building strong educational pathways. It's a pleasure for me to moderate this session. I'm delighted to be here with two good friends that are having a critical role here, Dan Swinney and Teresa Cordova, who I've worked with for many, many years, and the visionary lead of the Century Foundation. So thank you everyone for being here present today. It goes without saying that manufacturing continues to be a key driver in our economy, that we need to absolutely stay focused on manufacturing and the needs specifically of manufacturers. We also know very clearly from this report that the manufacturing sector has the fourth highest number of job openings based on job postings in the region, with average yearly earnings for jobs needing a high school diploma only or some level of career training of $35,000. So we have accessible opportunities out there, and this presents a phenomenal opportunity, as was shared earlier, not just to meet the needs of those manufacturers, but to also begin to bring income and home purchase opportunities and opportunities to raise a family and rebuild communities, right? And I know that issue of, how do we build affordable homes, right? Well, somebody has to be able to buy those homes, right? And so these are opportunities for us to do that. And there are particularly opportunities for us to reach deep into our communities. I just came from a group that's working on advancing opportunity youth, right? To and through post-secondary options and the broad breadth of post-secondary options that gives students enough skills to be able to enter into and grow within the labor market. So for those young people that are unemployed, particularly African American and Latinos who are disproportionately unemployed and underemployed, this is a wonderful industry for them to find themselves in. So we're going to talk a little bit today too about ensuring inclusion, right, and what we can do to ensure inclusion. And I just want to share that at City Colleges of Chicago, we've recognized this as an opportunity, and we're making the requisite investments. We are, as we speak right now, adding a wing to Richard J. Daley College on the southwest side. And David Grisaldo, who's our dean for manufacturing, is here with us as well. And so this wing is a $45 million investment that allows us to modernize our capabilities and expand our capabilities. We will be able to, on an annual basis, take to market about 1,000 students, up from roughly about 200 students that we're able to do in this little hut that's outside of the building right now. It really is a hut, okay? And so this $45 million investment is our way of saying to manufacturers and local communities, this opportunity is real, it's vibrant. We plan to bring elementary schools, high school students, and adults through the facility to learn about manufacturing in its current form. And so stay tuned. This will open in November or December of 2018. So it's right around the corner. Okay, if you want more information about it, David, can you just stand up so everybody knows who you are? You should talk to David because he knows a lot more than I do, okay? But obviously at City Colleges, we're only a part of a broader system that needs to work well for us to be successful. K through 12, obviously employers, many community-based institutions, some of whom are here with us today. And so with us today we have some of those players that, need to work well together to maximize these opportunities. And, let's start with Colin Cosgrove, president of Laystrom Manufacturing Company, because it really does start with Colin and many of the employers out there today that are working hard to stay and remain competitive and grow their businesses. But it's also our friends in labor. Joe Costigan is here with us, Executive Director of Chicago Federation of Labor, Workforce, and Community Initiative, because we know that the quality of work is important as well, right? And then our community entities that have been so critical. And I myself have been chancellor for a year, but I spent 16 years at a community entity called the Instituto del Progreso Latino. And so I know the value of our community entities. And with us here today is Mollie Dowling, Executive Director of OEI Inc., and Erica Swinney Staley, who's Director of Operations for Manufacturing Renaissance. And so, we're going to start off by asking each of you, right? And, I think I'm start with you. You all have diverse experiences in manufacturing. From your perspective, what does it take to make the industry more inclusive and meet the sector's workforce needs at the same time? So from your perspective, Colin, what does it take? And then I'll ask, Joe and Mollie and Erica, jump in as you are so inspired to.
So I'm curious, by a show of hands, because I've just been thinking about this as I came in here, how many people here actually represent manufacturers? Okay, so a fairly small percentage, and I think that's an interesting outlook, because this is these are the people. We're talking about the people that we need as we grow. We're talking about the people that Laystrom. We're a metal manufacturer, stamper, welding, laser cutting, robotics, various types of technologies, and we need people. We need the influx of people who are educated, who are capable of doing the work, not necessarily the day to show up, because we do internal training relative to our specific needs, but who can show up and literally show up every single day. And that's practically one of the challenges. We see this routinely as we have people coming in and they don't always show up every single day. That's a big issue. And we try to set forth a path for how do we, what's the reason to show up every day? This is working okay? It can understand an Irish accent?
They're having a problem with mine.
Okay. Little louder? Little louder, okay. I've been told for 25 years in this country that I'm too much of a soft talker, so I guess I got to keep working on that. But that 25 years is something that I'll speak to for a second. So when somebody comes in and we try to say, this isn't just a job, this isn't just an opportunity to bend metal, it is an opportunity for a career. Talking about building houses or owning houses and such, we look at this and I can tell from my own story. I mean, my first job in 1994 when I came over here was on the shop floor bending parts on a press brake. And 21 years later, I'm the president of the company. There's a path there, and I 100% believe that path is available to anybody who walks in the door, if they're willing to put in the effort. I don't think I did anything magical or special. Showed up, did the work, opportunity to grow and learn. And we try to put that in front of every single person who comes in the door to us, that there's an opportunity, and we need to communicate and market that there is this opportunity. And we do that internally as much as we can. And we try to talk about not just, here you're going to be making $12, $13, $14 an hour, whatever it is, but if you do this today and do this tomorrow and you grow and you come in with that approach that I want to be here, I want to contribute, I want to be part of the solution, I want to be responsible to the other people that are around me, that's the message that we have to get out to everybody who's coming to our building. And we see that coming from, somebody comes in, let's say, from Manufacturing Connect. These are people who have been coached and have support structures in place for people that will try to help them have that approach coming in and want to contribute. I think the interesting question about diversity or inclusion is something I struggled with a little bit, because so many of the people we've had coming in the last, let's say, year, let's be honest about it, they don't look like me. I don't look like them, right? And if we're talking about young African Americans, for example, it may be difficult to relate to me. Okay, my story is this path, but I got a funny accent, I got no hair. I mean, these are, and I'm white, and that can be a challenge to say this is, so the more people we can get in of diverse, you know, whether it's people of color or whatever, that, and setting that example and showing that success. You know, where's Torres? Torres, example of success. Somebody who's growing, learning, and accelerating in his career. And I don't know him very well, but I see stories about him all the time. Right? But that message has to get out there. And not just to the kids, it has to get out to the parents. Because if you've been growing up in this country for the last 30 years, you've been told that manufacturing is failing continually. And if you've been told that from age 20 to age 50, and you now have 18-year-old kids, you're probably telling them there isn't a future in manufacturing, because that's what you've been told for 30 years, and it's a flat-out lie. It's false. There's been challenges, absolutely, but it's not a dead-end job. There's great opportunities. And that message has to get out to parents as well as the kids. And, frankly, everybody else. It has to. But the diversity part of it is really interesting. I don't want, sorry, I'm taking maybe too much time.
Oh, no.
In my career, and I examined this recently because I was reflecting on this because I just became a citizen of this country. So I was looking back. I was taking that opportunity to kind of look back over the past 24 years here, and by my math, and I don't know the exact numbers, 50% of the people I've worked with in my career, so in manufacturing, have been born outside this country. Whether it's Polish, Mexican, Russian, Italian, Vietnamese, very diverse. No Irish people. Don't know what that's about. But it has. So my experience has been with a very diverse group of people, but it's also true, and the report validates this, that the management structure generally does look like me. So, and there's a lot of challenges, and some of that will continue to change over time as more people come in and of diverse backgrounds. So I'd say to me it's a little bit mixed. Like I've seen a lot of diversity, but I would also say that from an African American standpoint, probably less than 5%. So diversity in some ways, but not in others. Mm-hmm. So it's a mixed story. Yeah. But we need more. We need more people coming into the business.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Colin. Anybody else want to jump in?
Sure, I'll go. Mm-hmm. So I'm Mollie Dowling with OAI, and we're a nonprofit workforce development organization. Our mission is about alleviating poverty through access to employment. But in terms of this question about how to first meet the sector's workforce needs, I think we've seen clearly in our work in the South Suburbs, looking at the manufacturing sector, that we can only be successful when we partner with economic development. And further, beyond just workforce and economic development, we need to be also looking at education. And so as we are working with job seekers, we recognize them as a key customer in the work we do, but I think Andy mentioned this earlier, that our businesses are the second customer for all the work that we do. And so we're always looking to be a multi-layered, complicated resource for companies beyond just access to talent through the partnership with economic development. Our economic development partners in the room, Reggie Greenwood with CSEDC, and together we work with many companies to kind of understand what their challenges are with talent and many aspects of their business. In terms of finding resources to assist with this idea of inclusion, a couple of things come to mind for me in our work with CSEDC and at OAI. The first is really shepherding companies to understand the value of growing their own talent. So we're constantly, matching people with employment, but that magical applicant that has 3 to 5 years experience, that already has NIMS credentials or whatever the case may be, is very hard to find these days. So we're talking to companies a lot about developing earn and learn programs and figuring out how to hire folks without experience or maybe with limited experience through an internship program, and to then help shepherd them through a successful career so that they'll stay the long term. The second resource that we've really found to be important is retention services. We think that this is the next frontier in workforce development. I think Andy again mentioned this in the earlier panel and in the work of the study, and that's helping the company keep their workers. We find that low-wage workers are jumping from job to job to find 25 cents more at a different company, and it's not sustainable for them or the company. Everyone's losing along that path. And so we have really tried to figure out how we can introduce this as a formal service to companies to help make sure that the low-wage workers who are in fact really struggling with poverty, struggling with their own financial issues, but also struggling with things like transportation, which we heard about in the study, as well as childcare, and perhaps their ongoing education, to get some support around those work-life balance issues can help them stay for the long term. So we're really excited about that as a key strategy to address inclusion and to make sure that a diverse workforce at a company can be successful for the long term.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name's Joe Costigan. I'm the executive director of the Chicago Federation of Labor Workforce and Community Initiative, and that's an organization set up by the CFL over about 20 years ago. It was really set up in direct response to plant closings that were starting to happen in the mid-1980s in the manufacturing sector, and what are we going to do to help workers make the adjustment from losing a job to getting situated in new employment? How do we help people? And it was really a reaction kind of program, but our mission over time has been really to change from reaction toward building workforce strategies and getting unions to understand that we need to be involved at the front end. I worked for 31 years as a union rep for the clothing workers union, and we, typically unions have in the manufacturing sector have been engaged in, collective bargaining and problem solving, but we really didn't play a role in terms of who was coming into the workplace. That was something that we left up to employers, principally to decide, okay, who are you going to hire, and then once they're there, we'll do our work in representing them. But what we've really been trying to do at the CFL is develop an industrial union council where we start to bring together unions to really become engaged in the discussion around workforce development and issues of inclusion and issues of diversity in our work sites, and begin to really organize our affiliates to start thinking about what is really going on in the companies where we have relations with employers. What is going on in terms of hiring? What is going on in terms of long-term development? And what is going on with training? Those kinds of questions. And how can the union partner and bring resources so that we're not just fighting with companies over what we're bargaining for, but we're actually engaging in ways that we can assist the companies that we have collective bargaining relationships with. So our goal in terms of working with the unions on the industrial side has been to really develop an understanding of what the demand is out there in terms of jobs that exist, and how can we help fill that demand. And so we've been working on a number of initiatives that work directly with companies, initiatives like program that we have with People's Gas. We're helping them, working with our community college partners to develop a workforce that's going to change hundreds and hundreds of miles of gas lines that need to be replaced. We're working with the transportation companies that are in great demand for CDL drivers and the unions. We're working with the laborers union on projects to hire workers to change out gas meters, a gas meter program. And we're also working with manufacturers on the manufacturing side, developing apprenticeships in manufacturing to assist companies on training. We got a project that just actually started this week with representatives of the Ironworkers Local 473. There's Karen Demopius, who's the president of that local. She's been one of the people engaged in helping to set up an apprenticeship program for manufacturing workers. And one of the things that they're trying to do is make sure that workers are trained towards the things that companies need in the manufacturing sector, but also ensuring that workers are getting the credentials and getting the training and getting transferable skills that can lead them to greater opportunities in that industry. So the way they see that program is they're building a pipeline for their workers in manufacturing for potential apprenticeship opportunities in other industries that they represent that pay very good wages. And all the things that I talked about, all those initiatives are jobs that start over $25 an hour. So, those are the kind of things that we're working with our affiliates to try to identify. And how do we work with our allies in the community to make sure that we're addressing the needs for inclusion, that of community, people in the community going to work in those good living wage jobs that are being put out there. So the other thing that we're also working on is Chicago was once a center for railroad production, and years ago that all went away. But through the work of the mayor and other city, the aldermen in the 10th Ward and other city people, and also working with the CFL, a new Chinese rail company is going to be coming in to Chicago. They're building they're in the process of building their plant on the south side. It's going to create probably 200 direct jobs, but there's also going to be ancillary jobs that are going to be created out of that. We're working on that project with Jobs to Move America was another one that was instrumental in bringing that about here in Chicago. So we're really working with the unions, we're working with the community, we're working with the political leaders, we're working with our allies to make sure that those opportunities are available for people in that community for really good, decent paying jobs. So
Thank you.
Great. Good morning. My name is Erica Staley. It's so great to be here, and it's so great to be in a room full of so many friends and allies. I am the Director of Operations for Manufacturing Renaissance. I have the privilege of running what we call the Manufacturing Connect program and the Young Manufacturers Association program. Manufacturing Connect and Young Manufacturers Association programs create and expand linkages between community schools and opportunity in the surrounding manufacturing sector for the benefit of both communities as well as local industry. Currently, we have an exceptional team serving about 175 youth across 3 high schools and approximately 100 young adults across the west and south side of Chicago. Over the last 10 years, we have partnered with over 100 local manufacturing companies, and about 45 to 55 companies participate in some way in our program activities every year. They have provided over 500 work experiences, including internships, summer jobs, work study, job shadows. Our youth have earned over 300 NIMS credentials. They have earned over 125 college credits thanks to our dual credit program with Daly College, and have secured over 100 full-time jobs. 80% of those placements, they get beyond the first 90-day milestone. We are working in a context, as we've talked about today, that on one hand, we have about 20,000 jobs going unfilled in manufacturing in the Chicagoland area. And on the other hand, we have a real crisis in youth unemployment in Black and brown communities. But actually, it's worse than that. We literally have young people who are dying on the streets of Chicago. And we had a young person who was shot and killed just a couple weeks ago who was a participant in our program. So this is the context we're working in. And this is why this work is so urgent for us. As much as we know that there's this great opportunity, we also know we can't lose any more young people this way. And the concept of inclusion is not just another feel-good idea. We have a real opportunity to make a big leap forward in our economy and in our communities. But we need to start thinking about investing in innovation, not just as it relates to technology, but as it relates to programmatic design and institutional partnerships.
Over the last 10 years that I've been working with young people out of primarily Austin College and Career Academy, over the last 10 years, we've learned that the prospect of a job by itself is only attractive and sufficiently motivating. Motivating meaning that you're willing to go jump over the various hurdles you need to get the job. It's only really attractive off the bat to about maybe 15 to 20% of the young people we serve. For the rest of the 80 to 85% of the young people, the interest in the manufacturing job starts after the personal trusting relationship with someone related to the field gets established. It could be through a peer, another peer who's working in manufacturing, a family member, a mentor, a caring adult who hosted the young person, who, for a job shadow, who took the time to get to know this young person, what makes them tick. It could be a relatable machining instructor, and so on. Without that personal touch, a manufacturing job is just another job. We hear all the time from our kids, if I need a job, I can just work at Portillo's or Walmart. And frankly, we know even our kids, they can make money on the street. That is not a problem. Making money is not the issue. And they don't need the hassle of math tests and drug tests and old people looking down at them when they come to the workplace. We hear that all the time, every day, in some shape or form. We hear that from our young people. But when a peer, a friend, a family member, a mentor becomes the messenger of what these opportunities are all about why it's worth the effort to get through the drug tests and the math tests, and why it's worthwhile learning how to connect with people who don't look like you, that's when the light bulbs start to go off. That's when the real interest starts to kick in. The curiosity. What is this manufacturing stuff all about? And when these trusted relationships start talking not only about the jobs, but how these jobs can lead to getting college paid for, that, guess what? Someday you could own a manufacturing company. You could afford to buy property. You can get these things like health care and retirement savings and take vacations. You can take care of your people, or you can afford to get away from your people, as the case may be. Fostering these social elements as core of what our training and education program designs, I believe that is what is required to set the stage for creating the conditions for inclusion. These social elements make creating the conditions for scale possible, that we can finally, getting to a scale that we can finally get to actually meeting the needs of manufacturers like Colin and Laystrom. We know the young people we've served represent a small drop in the bucket of what's actually needed from our employers. But we can't get there unless we have programs that aren't designed just to help young people get credentials. Those are important, but it's not sufficient. We have to create a new cultural paradigm for what success looks like. What success looks like for me as a young person of color in these underserved communities. It means finding a different way of working with partners that I think we're just on the tip of the iceberg around. Like the phrase public-private partnerships is, it gets tossed around a lot and it's really important. And for me, that it's a critical first step of, yes, we need to be supporting, events like what Billy at Wright College is doing with the IMTS show and the STEAM Expo coming up in the fall. We need to work with organizations like OAI to make sure we're coordinated and working with Daly College on dual credit and finding a variety of ways in which to work. But that's just the beginning. We need to really start thinking of what institutional innovation really looks like. And for me, once we start getting to the next layer of that kind of development, then we'll start to see scale. We'll start to be able to fill those 1,000 seats at Daly College. We'll start to be able to create a demand, young people who are knocking our doors down, not because they got a flyer that says manufacturing is hot. They are knocking our doors down because they have a mentor, they have peers, they have people who they trust who are saying, hey, you really need to take a close look at this opportunity and see what this is about. If our programs right now, that's an afterthought. The programs that are being funded and designed and promoted focus on, yes, we need to make sure we're getting those outcomes of credentials and job placements. But we also need to start figuring out what is the innovation in community engagement, community outreach, peer support, youth development, Those need to be critical ingredients to these programs that we need to design to meet the needs of our companies and our communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Erica. Erica, I'm gonna, oops, I gotta do this. I'm gonna wanna come back to you a little more about the how,
Yeah.
because you put out some pretty big things there, okay? So you talked about trusting relationships, you talked about sort of institutional strategies and transformations that are across institutions, and this new cultural paradigm, right? And so do a little more. I know you've done a lot of thinking about this, but you know, in the next few minutes,
Yeah, sure.
condensing it to a couple of things that we could walk away with as, you know, to-dos, next steps,
Yeah.
as it regards to these, you know, what I see as 3 big things you put out in the last few minutes. But I want to go back to Colin, right? Because, you know, we got to go back to the employer. And we got to be consistently asking you, what do we need to do, right? From your perspective as a person that is working very hard to ensure that your business has opportunity to grow and advance, and therefore opportunity for people to be a part of that growth and advancement. And I know you said, hey, you know, I need folks to show up, do work, you know, be willing to grow, be part of the solution, be responsible to people around you. You know, that's what you're saying you need from the worker themselves, you know, from the talent that you get. But what do you need from us, the folks that are out here saying we want to help you, right? What do we actually need to do to truly help you?
So it's a tough question to answer, right? And that's why we're here. But a big part of what we can do structurally, societally, is we're local to what Erica and Dee Dee and others are doing at Austin, and now Prosser and Bowen high schools. And the more, frankly, funding and support that goes to those programs, the better for us. Because, you know, I'll give an example. There's a lot of talk in the paper that was presented, you know, NIMS credentials as being a really good thing. For us personally, for our company, NIMS credentials are meaningless to me. Mm-hmm. All it means to me is they're meaningless in the technical sense. What it means is somebody had the discipline to go through the work to get them. That's how they're meaningful. Now we can take that somebody and train them for our specific requirements, right? So, because our technologies are different from what is required from somebody who has NIMS certification. So the idea of just getting a certification in and of itself isn't the big thing for us. It's preparing somebody, and a lot of work is done on kind of soft skills, on attitude and approach, and but I think, and those are important, but I think you gotta, and I talked with Jeff Deck, my plant manager, Jeff has 40 years experience, and he's trained a lot of people in his career. And I asked him about this question, and he said, you know, the one thing is it's really kind of a step beyond the soft skills to a sense of responsibility. So we have, and this is universal. I shouldn't say universal because it's a little dangerous, but I mean this is we see with millennial workers who are coming in expecting to be able to take the next step and the next step and the next step at a very accelerated rate. And reality is, I'm not from Missouri, right? But show me. You got to show up and do the work. And if you show up and do the work, you will get the reward. And we've proven that at our company. You know, Roberto is a young engineer who's working for us now, who came in 3 years ago as a temp worker, and he showed up, and I said, we need an engineer. He walked up to me and said, I want that job. And we sat down, and we chatted about it, we talked about what his capabilities were and what his interests were, and then he did the work, and he's now working full-time as an engineer. And he's a great guy. He's doing a robotics program for us today. But he came in with that approach of, I don't expect something, I'm going to show up, I'm going to work for it, and it really is sometimes that simple. Show up and do the work. Do the work that you're expected to do, work with respect to the other people around you. And so anything that the programs can do to instill that kind of way of thinking, and I think it's why I made it really does good work with this, where you're seeing alumni coming back into Manufacturing Connect, showing that example, showing that there is a possibility, this is real, there is opportunity for growth. There is opportunity to go get that car, that get those kind of rewards that you want, but also to be satisfied in your career, to be satisfied in the work that you're doing 50, 60 hours a week. I think that's compelling. So if any opportunity to create a vision that is beyond the soft skills themselves, those are important, but the opportunity to create a vision beyond that, so that, again, that YMA program really serves well in this context, and the more social media stuff that gets out there, whether it's on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I think, are we live tweeting this? I don't know. I have no idea. So, but those types of, the more we can connect those to the people coming in, the better vision they will have for what their career could be.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one step at a time, just that there is that path.
Yeah. I'm struck in sort of you keep coming back to this theme of being responsible to yourself, too, by being responsible to other people around you, being responsible to the company that you work for, being responsible to the community that you're a part of, right? And so that, that's a consistent theme, I think, that, knits a lot of threads here, in terms of community and overall. Am I supposed to do Q&A already? Not by my watch, and what I was told, but I'm happy to do. I'm happy to do Q&A now, right? I'm going to get back to Eric. Right? I'm happy to do Q&A now. Okay.
I actually don't need a microphone, but is there a microphone?
We need a microphone up front. Some of us don't.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, now you can. Okay. First of all, I would like to say that we need to get to away with the term soft skills and use the term essential skills, because yes, thank you, because soft has its own negativity to it, and it is truly essential skills that are needed. So, number one. Number two, have any of you heard of FIRST Robotics?
Yeah.
Good, okay, because with everybody on this panel right now, all of you send one person to create a program down on the south side, it will take off. And I would love to talk to you more about this, because as we've talked about before, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And this is mostly junior high and high school programs that show you opportunities that they would never know of, that it will blow your mind. And I could talk about it all day, but I won't. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about it. I'll send you an email, whatever. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yeah, good. Molly wants to share something. Go ahead.
Excellent point, and one that we have thought a lot about as companies have come to us and said, we need people, we need new hires, especially young people who know how to work together in teams, who know how to solve problems, who know how to think about the iterative design process, which are not necessarily inherent skills. We have developed a robotics program, and so in the south suburbs, we went to our manufacturing community and said, would you be interested in sponsoring robotics teams at our high schools if they were to start? And we heard a resounding yes. And so this was our second year of our Southworks Robotics and Engineering Olympics. The Olympics are at South Suburban College. It's for the entire South Suburban region. So we had 20 new teams this year compete in an Olympic event, all of which were sponsored by companies. And I think it really addresses what Colin was saying about helping young people get exposed to team-based learning where they're responsible to each other to build these robots for the competition. And then in the meantime, they meet with companies who are mentoring them through the process, who host the teams to their sites so they can see what the facility looks like, what the jobs are all about. It is kind of a soft touch because it's not the deep dive NIMS training that is happening at Austin, but it is a great exposure tool and gateway into the industry robotics is also inherently connected to maker labs. And so, kind of getting those young people, like we heard Karen talk about her son this morning, tinkering and getting their hands on things and learning that, making things is exciting. And the idea of inventing things that then get made is also inherently exciting. And I think there's a natural connection with robotics. I appreciate you bringing that up. There are a lot of robotics programs out there. FIRST is an amazing one, but we found that there are barriers for low-income schools to have access to that program. Yeah, so there are other ones that I'd love to share. If you're interested, we can talk more about what we're doing out there, but I agree completely. It's a key strategy.
Okay, any other questions?
Thank
Alderman.
you. One of the things, 3 points I want to make, I think it's 3, but one of them, it goes back to what Colin was talking about in terms of people having those skills in terms of attitude and wanting to show up and all of that. One of the things I'm finding out there as an elected official, as people come to us, and a lot of things that I'm seeing, for me, what would be helpful if people are out there. I know we do what they call job fairs, these large job fairs. To me, some of those are counterproductive because you get a whole bunch of people to show up. Sometimes, it's hard to view resumes or you try to get people in, and then you end up selecting people that may not have what she want to call essential skills, what you say are soft skills, which semantics, when doesn't matter, just being people that's, committed to working. And you may end up going through this process and not getting the right person. And then what happens is if there's a right person that's out there because of all these other people that showed up, may not get selected. What's helpful to us is, definitely to me and to others that I know, as we try to identify people in the community, trust me, we're not just throwing somebody and say, go down there and call her. At least what I do, and I know other people do it, okay, show up for this community cleanup thing. Meet me here to volunteer. Show that commitment, and when people are doing things for free, and they're showing up and doing that commitment for free, those are the people that's already demonstrating I can work. And what happens is if we can put those type of people to work in a small setting, introduce and get those people in front of you, what happens, those people that are not so committed, they're saying, wait, maybe I can do this. Because when they're seeing the committed person not getting anything, guess what? They're saying, why should I do anything? This guy shows up every day, he does this, and he's not getting a job. So why should I even? And that goes back to your peer point. That when they see their peers succeeding, that's when they're turning around because everything on the street is not just drug dealing. It's a mindset of we're just hanging out. That's what they do now. They just hang out. But if John is not there to hang out with anymore because he's working in a manufacturing job, then Joe is then saying, hey, let me go to work with him. So I'm looking and asking people who we can work with on a small scale to get, I don't care if it's once every 3 months, hey, let's get these people in front of you that have shown some type of commitment instead of everybody just doing these large job fairs, because you have to begin to put a dent in there. And then the other piece is, I think Andrea Zopp touched on it a little, but we have to be pressing not only from the political standpoint, but from the business standpoint and everywhere. As the mayor, as you see, we bring corporations here. So you move McDonald's here, you move Boeing here, but the people who are already in those buildings, they just move with them. But it's different if you can bring and move a manufacturing company to the south side of Chicago. Give these tax credits for them. Just put those companies there where the workforce is, and we'll be able to have some greater successes from there. So however we can work on that together, I think that'd be very productive. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Alderman. You got another question here, one in the back. Okay, well, right here we have, okay.
Thank you. My experience in workforce development has been primarily on the front line, where I've done grassroots outreach. And what I've noticed is there is a tremendous need for marketing to this target market, the message of inclusion and employment opportunity. For those that are in school, it's fine. We have got great teachers that are exposing them to these programs. But what about those that are not in school, that fall in between, that aren't getting this message out. Because when I was out there outreaching, what I heard from people was there's just not a lot of opportunity. It blew my mind to hear them say that, knowing that there's a tremendous amount. So what dollars and efforts are being put towards marketing to this target market in a way that they'll listen or look or see, because we're visual people and we're audio people, however that is.
We want to take that?
Well, the answer is there's not nearly enough support for that kind of activity. Unfortunately, in our experience, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is such a gap, an information gap, an awareness gap, but frankly, you know, right now, and this kind of gets to, you know, hopefully some next steps is, you know, we get our funding from grants. Across the spectrum from public to private government. You know, nobody wants to fund that aspect of the work. You know, they want to say, you know, like we get slapped on the wrist if we're spending any money that's not directly related to people already in the program. And that for me is a real lost opportunity, because I think for as much as we're investing in the quality of our training, which is critical, but we need to put an equivalent investment in what's the community outreach, what's the range of, you know, from social media to, you know, community events to, you know, exchanges of there's lots of ways to do that. And it's not funded. And in fact, it's frankly looked down upon. It's seen as unnecessary overhead, or, you know, I mean, I've gotten a lot of pushback from funders of various stripes, because that's always, you know, the 1% of our budget that we kind of squeeze in, but it's never it's never seen as a primary tool to really get young people from point A to point B, and I think it's unfortunate.
Well, perhaps employers will be able to contribute towards that, since it will benefit them.
Yes, they're definitely part of the equation, but most of the companies we work with are small, privately held. We're not, you know, we're grateful that we got some funding from Boeing, for example, but most of the companies are small firms, and they don't have a lot of, I mean, so part of it is that's why this is a system response. You know, that's why we need to get the coordination from the city to the county to the private foundations to, you know, public, you know, funding sources, that there's an alignment and agreement that we need to collectively make sure there's a bigger piece of that pie that we can commit to investing in community and outreach and engagement, because I think it's really critical. And no one piece of that stakeholder group can do what's necessary. I mean, it's such a big issue. Like it all needs to be chipped in.
Yeah.
From the different sectors.
Molly wants to. Yeah, just.
Yeah.
Whether it's you or whoever, if there's someone that's saying, and let's simplify this, that I'm a one-stop shop, not going everywhere, I'm putting 20, I'm just throwing out a number, 20 people to work every month.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Who can raise their hand and say they're doing that? That becomes the story, and that's what people are quickly to get that money behind, because they're seeing those results. If I have people in here talking about it, and it is some good conversations, but I can't get to anyone that's saying every month, I swear, if you get me good people, I'm putting 20 people to work, and I got more jobs out there waiting for 20 more good people, or whatever that number is. When you can show that and do that and demonstrate that, I think whether it's the city, state, county, or whoever, philanthropy, they'll get that money behind that. I think people's thought process is that as we're out there where you got resource centers and everything, they feel they're throwing their money away.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing this every day until somebody raised their hand and say, David, right now I'm putting 20 people to work every month, and you give me some 20 more good people. If that's not happening, then everything just seems like it's counterproductive.
Yeah. That's a good challenge to put out there, right? So we have a few more people with questions, and we're running out of time. So what I want to do is let's take the questions, and then we'll take whatever questions are remaining, and then we'll try to answer as best we can.
There's a woman in the back
Okay?
there.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm Thomas Day. I am the co-founder of an organization called Invent 2026. We work with startups and labs to commercialize and build, thank you. Commercialize and build technologies from the lab here in Chicago and Midwest region. I went to Dan Swinney and Erica and Dave and Seacole. Seacole here, brother? at any rate, the whole Manufacturing Renaissance team a few months ago. And I said, would you help me? I have a group of researchers who have technologies that we need to prototype and build here in Chicago, as opposed to having them ship their design specifications offshore and see what comes back in the mail 3 weeks later. This model, we can work together to demonstrate a few success stories here in Chicago, but only a few. To scale, we need to answer one question, and I would pose this to you, Chancellor Salgado. What are our strategic clusters here in Chicago that we are going to focus on to build products and technologies for the next 10 and 20 years? In Pittsburgh, when the steel industry went down, they stopped everything they were doing and they went and built robotics. We haven't had that kind of definition here in Chicago. So I ask you that question, I'll add two things here. Number one, advanced manufacturing isn't a cluster. What advanced manufacturing builds is a cluster. And number two, there are cities that do things better than we do. Boston is always going to be a leader in biotech. We are never going to compete with Boston in biotech, my God. Software, we are obviously never going to compete with San Francisco in new apps and software platforms. What are we going to build here in Chicago that is going to match the market of the next 10 and 20 years? And how are we going to pair workforce development with this?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. We'll get to all the questions first, and then we'll try our best to quickly, have a response. And I'm going to ask everyone, please keep your questions brief so that we can get through as many as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Chancellor. Not so much a question, but a possible solution to some of the issues that some of you are bringing up. And I'm going to speak in regards to the STEAM Expo that the City College Chicago, Chicago Public Schools, and Cook County are participating or partnership in, trying to bring or expose those underserved communities, those students, to the opportunities that you say are available. So we're going to reach out to you, hope that you can support us in some way. Those technologies that you just spoke about, those futuristic technologies, things of relevance, we're offering an opportunity to do tangible, hands-on experiences with upwards of 2,500 students plus, because they actually offered 5,000 students to come actually see this. This particular program is called Smart Force Student Summit, brings in 20,000 students from as far away as Idaho. I can say less than 7% of those students are actually from Chicago. So certain communities are aware of the opportunities that are within advanced manufacturing, and I'm a supply chain guy, so I go across the spectrum from logistics, biotech, all of those different things. We need to expose our students to that. So I'm asking Jay and CFL, when you have these particular programs, and I'm pretty sure you'll be at the IMTS show, that somehow you can take that information and give it to our young people. And that's basically it for me.
Okay. Thank you. Are we done? Right? Are we done?
One.
Okay. You want to share something?
No,
No,
just saw
we got one more.
there's-
Okay.
Hi, I'm Paul Williams, and I wanted to just kind of, I think one of you gentlemen said, what can we do? I know that we've been working on this bill in Springfield with Senator Palmer and everyone, and we managed to get it out of the House. We got a lot of legislators who agree with us conceptually that what we're doing in Manufacturing Renaissance is something that needs to be duplicated and possibly funded throughout the state system. I think right now there's a need to find an avenue to allow for this sort of training and vocational training back into the public school sector, in the sense that right now most of the training, most of the things are handled by either private industry, unions, or what have you, but the old Washburn routes, the old vocational routes have all been kind of shut down, and we need some help. We're just quite honest. That's why I'm here to make it a pitch. We need some help in trying to help us to get this concept, this idea, more broadly disseminated, known, talked about. So we're reaching out, and I was just talking to Senator Palmer about trying to set up a series of different community events throughout, not just Chicago, because it's a statewide effort. We need events in Decatur, we need events in Peoria, we need events in Danville that will help us to try to communicate to legislators who all agree that this is something that's needed with manufacturers, but to a man, still no one wants to come up with a funding formula for how to put it together. So I'm just making a shout out to those of you who are trying to figure out what next. Grab Mr. Robinson. I'm not putting myself on this spot. I'm putting David on this spot. And try to get it, because we're going to be putting together strategies and plans, because we managed to get the bill out of the House. We were stalled in the Senate. They raised a lot of questions, even though they expressed a lot of support for the concept. But now we need to take it this summer and this fall to try to reinvigorate the whole idea, to try to get people more engaged. So we'll be looking for partners to help us to get into the communities, to discuss what we're trying to do, to discuss its impact and potential for bringing manufacturing jobs, manufacturing interest to this state, and to push the idea that there needs to be somewhere within the public school sector an avenue for our kids to get the sort of training and the sort of educational and vocational type skills that they can get without having to go through other extremes. So mine is just a shout out, a request that you get with David and someone else as we begin to sit down and plan how we're gonna do this. We need it in the south suburbs. We need it on the west side to get these people so that we can get more of those local legislators to engage and commit to this concept. We'll have a better chance of passing this bill over the next couple of years. So I just need your support and continue to request that you guys, wherever you can, reach out and work with us.
So let me, thank you. So let me, I'm gonna take the moderator's prerogative to close this out by sharing that, I think, Alderman, when you spoke about delivering actually, to the jobs, right? And being able to report that we're actually delivering the skilled workforce. And so, I agree with you, Alderman. Once we can prove we're working together, once we can prove that the work that we're doing together is actually resulting in those folks that are doing what Colin said he wants them to do, but they're actually having success, right? We're gonna start pulling people into, this economy and into these job opportunities. And so, and reaching deeper into the young people that are, still available and desirous of coming into this industry. And so I think, clearly this table is an important table to remain at so that we can get to that collective impact. And I think it's important for everybody in the room to realize that, at least from my perspective as Chancellor, having been around this, we have not exactly been optimizing the opportunity points to work together, and so, it's hard to say, to any stakeholder, come give us more until we've optimized what we're already doing, right? And I think we have to do both at the same time, right? We do need more, but we also need to optimize what we're doing today, right? And just to, get to, Chicago's more complex than, Pittsburgh, right? And I am part of conversations that we're having right now about, actually the question is, should we focus more in one element of, I don't want to get in a conversation about this right now. Should we focus in one or another? Should we remain broader? If we focus in one or another, which areas should we focus in and why? And I'm not sure it's as easy an answer, right, as a place like Pittsburgh might have had, given Pittsburgh's, situation. And so I'll leave it at that. I don't have an answer to that right now. I think we should be asking ourselves those critical questions. So I appreciate that you brought those critical questions to the table. And we appreciate the panelists, for sharing your perspective. Erica, you're deeply involved in this. Mollie, you're deeply involved in this. Colin, this is my second or third time hearing your, visionary sense of what employers really are looking for. And, Joe, labor's always been here, right? And so we appreciate that you've been here. And I would say if you want to continue the conversation with any one of us. we'll take responsibility for making sure that all of us are talking to each other to produce more optimal results in the future. So thank you again.